It's absolutely ridiculous, particularly in your country, that you've had people taken to court for actually saying on their private Facebook pages that they believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, when at that particular time that was the law of the land. So you have to ask yourself, how on earth, could you be taken to court? So, we've had this tipped on its head, and it's been a deliberate tactic by the gay lobby. You see this right around the world. I've travelled in America and been and also met with people from Europe, and we see this demonisation of anybody who stands up in support of marriage. I was going to say traditional marriage, but it isn't. It's in support of marriage, and what marriage actually means. Then you see them demonised, and this has been the tactic, because if you demonise the person, and we've seen this throughout history, if you demonise the person, you don't have to take on the argument, and the argument on the other side has no basis, in fact.
Well, now, in terms of that particular issue, same-sex marriage becoming a legal right, which it is now in this country, how has your lobby fought that sort of movement in Australia?
Well, it goes back, I suppose, to what I saw as a need, when I first started the lobby, and that is that we have to understand that politics, and political parties in particular within politics, are very pragmatic. We look cynically sometimes at the way politics plays out, but the reality is that's our democracy. I mean, it was Churchill, wasn't it, who said, democracy is terrible, but it's the best system of any that has been tried thus far, words to that effect. And that's a reality, So we as the church can't just step out of politics. We've got to accept that, never be seduced to acting like politics, in the way politics does, but nonetheless engage it, And when we engage it, we've got to engage it intelligently. And I think the first step in that is to understand that politics, and political parties in particular, will respond to a constituency which identifies itself and is committed. Now, in this particular issue, we've done exactly that. So the result was that we defeated the gay marriage bill in the federal parliament by almost 2-1. Now, I don't think that was done anywhere else in the world, but it was that we went in there and we convinced the parties that this was an issue that enough people felt strongly enough about that they could change governments.
But are you saying that in Australia the Christian constituency is a singular constituency?
No, I'm not, but no constituency is, And the environmental lobby, for instance, I don't know about England, but certainly in Australia, it's beset with internal fights and arguments about things, and the Christian constituency, by comparison, is hugely unified.
What would your advice be to the general membership of churches in this country, where they see the leadership, perhaps particularly in the Church of England, taking a much more liberal view of acceptance of same-sex unions?
Well, I think you've got to engage the leadership, and I think it's quite right that the leadership should be held to account. If we have, in a democratic system, we have an acceptance of the fact that people at the grassroots can hold leadership to account, given the fact that in the church, in the Christian world, we know that our relationship with Christ is an individual one, it's a personal one, And so I think there's all the more reason for the ordinary person in the pews to, if they disagree with what their leaders have said, to go to those leaders respectfully, to put their arguments coolly and calmly, but nonetheless to call them to account, to reflect a biblical view. I've read only this week, the letter by the bishop, I think it was, of Gloucester, and I don't think I've ever seen a more confused, weak and wishy-washy statement than I'd ever seen.
From your point of view as a Christian, do you think there is any confusion over what God accepts as the proper condition for marriage?
No, and I don't think there is at all, and I find it absolutely amazing that as we look, not just in the Old Testament, but we look in, for instance, the book of Romans, it's very clear that homosexuality is not acceptable to God, that this is part of of the sin that entered the world after God created it and saw it as good. And I think we've simply got to understand that. Now, we don't do that in a judgmental sense, you know. We do it out of love for those people that we don't want to see sin affecting their lives in the way that we know the outcomes of a gay lifestyle are injurious to people. But I really admire Christian concern for the way that it does go out there in a tough environment, and Andrea in particular, and nonetheless state the truth. You know, we've always got to state it with grace. We'll have to accept that we will never be represented as graceful, because throughout history, you know, and Christ told us, you know, that's how the world would respond to us. But nonetheless, we have to do it. We have to stand up for truth. We have to do it gracefully, and I'm sure God will honour that.